Welcome to this lecture. The topic of this lecture is constructors and initialization. Let's get started with a general overview. So what are constructors? Constructors are special functions in a class that are used to create and initialize objects. You can think of a constructor as the process of building a new toy from a kit. When you follow the instructions, the constructor, you put all the parts together. So you initialize the properties to make a complete toy, in this case, object. What about the initialization blocks? Well, the initialization blocks, or init blocks, are chunks of code inside a class that run immediately after an object is created. They are used to perform any setup tasks that are needed when the object is first made. Alright, let's dive in deeper to the code and I'll give you some more examples. Let's get started. So the first constructor that we have here is the primary constructor and an initialization block. So a primary constructor is the main way to create an object of the class. It's defined in the class header with val and var to automatically create properties. So here we have class person, we have the two variables here, we have val name and we have var age, and these create the properties. Then we have the initialization block. So as you can see, after that we have init, that is short for initialization, and this block of code runs right after the object is created using the values from the constructor. Here it prints a message showing the name and age. Okay. Next we have introduce. So you can see it has fun, introduce. So this is a method. The introduce method prints a greeting that includes the name and age of the person. So when you make a new person, you immediately get a message saying the person's name and age, and you can ask the person to introduce themselves. It's like filling out a name tag and having the person say hello. Next, we have the secondary constructor. So the secondary constructor is another way to create objects used when you need more flexibility. It sets up the properties manually and can include additional setup code. Here we have the properties species, okay, and age. And these properties are defined without initial values and are set in the constructor. Okay, so they don't have values. Method, we have the describe method, and this prints a description of the animal. So when you make a new animal, you tell it what type of animal it is and how old it is, and it announces this information. It's like giving a pet a name and age tag. Here we have a class with multiple initializers. Here we have firstly the primary constructor and init block, so the initialization block. So just like in the person class earlier, the car class has a primary constructor to set make and model. The car class, here are the make, here we have model, and an initialization block is used to print an initialization message. Okay, here we have the secondary constructor with extra parameters. Here's the secondary one. This secondary constructor calls the primary constructor using this make model, so here it's calling it, and adds extra functionality, printing the manufacturing year. Right, here we have the year. Method. The drive method prints a message about driving the car. Here we have the method that prints out the message about driving the car. So when you make a new car, it tells you its make and model right away. If you also provide the year, it tells you that too. Then you can say you're driving it. It's like getting a new car and hearing all its details before you take it for a spin. So simply put, constructors and initialization blocks in Kotlin are ways to set up new objects with their initial values and perform any necessary setup when the object is created. A primary constructor automatically sets up properties and runs the init block right after the object is created. A secondary constructor provides an alternative way to create objects, allowing for more customization and additional setup. The initialization block, or the init, is a block of code that runs immediately after an object is created, often used for printing messages or performing setup tasks. These are tools that help you create objects in a structured and consistent way, and they will ensure that you have the correct initial values and setup right away from the start. Here at the end, we have a main function, and it just shows you how to create and use different objects. So we make a person, we make an animal, and two car objects, and we see how each one announces their creation and perform actions like introducing itself or driving. This is like a demonstration of how to use various templates to create and interact with objects in a program. All of the code here is in the description below this lecture, so you can copy it and play around with it in your IntelliJ. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I will see you in the next one.